Alrighty. Sorry, y'all. A little bit of frog in my throat this morning. Okay, so I'm gonna take attendance real quick. We'll do some announcements and then we'll dive on into that. Okie dokie. All right, so just a quick reminder that Friday I'm at a conference, so we do not have class. Use that time to sleep or do whatever you need to do. But then we do have class Monday, and Monday we're gonna start covering health site. So we'll dive into that. And that's our last chapter, believe it or not. So when you all get back from Thanksgiving, then we have like a week and a half and then we're done. So alrighty, so we were talking about different types of therapy. Today we only have a couple more slides, but then we have a couple activities we're going to do as well. So family systems theory. So in family systems theory, the family itself is seen as a unit, as the client, rather than a particular individual. So you're not treating two individuals in a couple or, you know, however many individuals in a family, you are treating the relationship between them. Often there will be an identified patient whose problems represent the plight of the family as a whole, and often whose problems motivate them to come in for therapy initially. So family therapy thus focuses on the family as a unit. And therapeutic techniques include validation of each person's concerns, reframing of the way they see what other people are doing. Sometimes you need structural change within the family, and detriangulation. So triangulation is when two people are having a fight, but the fight becomes more about a third person, right? So you kind of put that person in the middle. Oftentimes this happens to kids, unfortunately. And so the big thing that you want to do in family therapy is help the family realize the kid is not the problem. It's again, this relationship issue they need to work out. And that's where couples therapy comes into play. So couples therapy is used to help couples address long-term problems. It varies in technique, but often you use like a behavioral technique or an integrative technique. I was trained in couples therapy when I was in graduate school, and we really focused on communication more than anything else. And use techniques like reflective listening. So have one partner talk, and the other person isn't allowed to just jump back in with their rebuttal. They have to listen to what the first person is saying and reflect back, say what they said, and then say, is that right? That's really hard. We're used to as people jumping in, right? But it's really a good technique to help people learn to actually listen to each other. And then group therapy takes advantage of being able to learn from other people, gives folks additional support, and you can do this for a whole host of different issues. So there are group therapies for things like borderline personality disorder, eating disorders, depression, anxiety, things along those lines. There are also self-help groups where they'll do this without the clinician. And the most well-known example of a self-help group is AA, right? Alcoholics Anonymous. So they're typically, you don't have a clinician, but the group focuses on helping each other. Culture and religion are really important aspects to keep in mind here. So culture-sensitive therapies address unique issues for members of minority groups. And in terms of religion, we have sort of changed our view on it. So Freud called religion a defense mechanism, which is not the modern view. Therapists originally distanced themselves from it, and a lot of therapists still do, to be perfectly honest. But now within the mental health field, we tend to see the benefits of faith and incorporate it if we see a religious client. And there are people whose therapeutic approaches entirely come from their religious perspective. Around here, a lot of folks who get their degrees at places like Regent or Liberty will have that perspective, a Christian perspective. So that can be really good if that resonates with you, but obviously it can be a challenge if you yourself are not from the same faith. Community treatment emphasizes community care and allowing clients to receive treatment in familiar surroundings. And then prevention is a big move within psychology, I don't know, for the past 20 years or so, where the idea is let's try to prevent these really challenging disorders before they even start. There are some things we're not going to be able to prevent, right? Like we know schizophrenia is genetic. We're not going to be able to prevent that. But things that we know have social cultural influences, like eating disorders, like suicide, there are really effective prevention programs for those. So the idea is we try to educate and prevent them, or identify and treat the people who will need it early on. Not only is this better for the client, but it's actually more cost effective for the system. All right, and so I have a brief video showing some family therapy here.
I think she has decided that Jason is more exciting in school, and Jason is a bum. Jason is a bum.
He's not a bum.
Jason is a bum.
He's not.
He doesn't go to school. His father's an alcoholic. He doesn't have any plans for himself at all. He has no respect. He has no goals. He's just a complete bum. I don't know what else to call him. What would you call him?
So you don't think that Jason is a good influence on Sarah?
No, I don't think Jason's a good influence on Sarah. She doesn't go to school. She stays out late at night. I don't know where she is. He drives this beat-up car, 90 miles an hour all the time.
Yeah.
He pulls out from in front of our house. The whole block can hear the tires. Why does he do this? He needs to be bad. He needs to be bad. And I think he makes her need to be bad.
Wow. So this is very upsetting for you.
It's very upsetting for me because I think Sarah has everything going for her, and it's not that I don't know how you feel. I know that you want excitement, and you don't just want to be you don't want to just be boring. You just don't want to be boring.
You mentioned she has everything going for her. What do you mean?
I don't think a 15-year-old girl needs to stay out later than 11:30 on the weekend. I think it's absolutely, yes, so every night.
Every night.
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe Dad doesn't feel the same way you do.
I think we need reliability. That's the thing I think we need.
You think that's what's important?
Yeah, consistency.
Uh-huh.
And I think maybe if Sarah was consistent and maybe her mom could count on her, then she might cut her some slack on the weekends, maybe.
Maybe.
When I was 15 years old, my dad said 9 o'clock on the weeks and 10:30 on the weeknights, and that's it. And I didn't make a big deal out of it. I knew that's when I was supposed to be home, and I came home. And I don't know what the deal is. I just don't understand what the deal is with it. I mean, I think you do it just to make, you don't do it just to aggravate me. I know you don't do it just to aggravate me, but you don't make any effort. You don't make any effort at all to please me. And I'm not doing it just to be happy. I don't need you to come home to be in a good mood. I need you to come home because night it's dangerous. It's dangerous out there. Things happen at night. I mean, it's late enough. 10 o'clock is late enough.
So you're worried about Sarah's safety?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking
yes,
about?
I'm worried about her safety, and I don't mean just getting run over by a drunk driver, but I also mean, people get ideas late at night.
Right.
But things happen during the day too.
I know they happen during the day, but I'm not talking about during the day. I'm talking about at night.
I see.
She worries too much though.
Ah.
You wait till you have kids.
So, are we talking about, maybe, Lou, you have a good point here. Are we talking about reliability and consistency as Lou is talking about, or are we talking about 10 o'clock and 11:30?
So as you can see, when you do family therapy, your job is sort of to be a referee, right? But it is to listen to everyone in the room and to hear that dynamic and figure out what's underlying these issues, right? So the next thing I'm gonna have y'all do, and everyone can do this, folks on Zoom, folks in person, is click on this link. And alrighty, we'll do a couple groups in person and then 3 groups online. So you will go ahead and let me put the tiny URL back up for folks who need it to get to it. So you can go on your computer, you can go on your phone, whatever works. So, excuse you, just like I'm gonna do what I want to do. All right. And this is an assignment where you as a group are going to be assigned a little case study, and then you give your client a diagnosis, and then you go to this link, which shows you the therapies that have research behind them to support treating that particular diagnosis. So let's say your diagnosis was ADHD. No one's is, so I'm not like spoiling it for any of the groups, right? Now there's only one thing that works here. So that would be a pretty easy answer to this assignment. So you would look at what therapies work, and then you say, which one sounds the most appealing to you? Which one would you most want to do? All right, so let's go ahead and have these 4 folks be one group, and then these 4, 3 people, these 3 folks on this side of the room be group 2. So group 1, group 2. And then, yes, so the link in the chat is just tinyurl.com/whotherapy. So you should be able to copy paste that. And so I will put you in 3 groups on Zoom. So group room 1 will be group 3, sorry, this is confusing. I should have probably assigned the Zoom rooms first. That's okay. 2 will be group 4. And then room 3 is group 5. Okay, so make sure everybody on Zoom has the link. I'm gonna go ahead and put you into breakout rooms. My guess is it'll take you 5 to 10 minutes or so to go through. All right, so there will be 2 to 3 of you in each room. So please make sure you are participating with your fellow folks. But I'm gonna go ahead and open the rooms. There we go.
So we're just giving them a diagnosis.
Yeah, exactly. So just like you did on like multiple choice questions on exam, you look at this and you say, what diagnosis is it? And then based on that, you use the site to say what therapy would work for them.
I guess, yeah. No, we're not. We're group 2.
Yeah, y'all are group 2. This is group 1.
So are we just supposed to pick one?
Exactly. Yeah. So write a couple examples and then pick the one you think would help the person the most or that you like the best that you think you'd like to do as a therapist if you were a therapist.
When's the doors gonna-
So group 1 was super efficient. Good job. Y'all could just chat or relax while we wait for other folks to do it.
Want me to, like, what's it called? we click on the depression one,
Mhm.
all the therapies are like anxiety, like none of them. I don't know if I click the wrong thing.
Let me take a look. It's entirely possible that a link is broken.
Like the treatments for.
So when I click on depression, yep, these are all for depression.
Okay.
So yeah, just on the link I gave you, I'll just click on depression and there should be a list of the therapies that treat that. And for depression, it's really low. Right. I gave one group a really tricky little case study, so I just gave them a hint on the sheet. Hopefully that'll help them. We'll give it like another minute or two and then we'll discuss. Alrighty. I'm giving the folks online about 1 more minute. It's a little harder when you're online, I think. Alrighty. Cool. So I'm just gonna let them know real quick that I'm gonna close the rooms. I'm really bad at doing that usually, so. Alrighty. And we'll wait till everybody's back. Make this a little bigger, so it's a little easier to read for everybody. Okay. Everybody should be back now. Yep, cool. Alrighty, so we'll start with group 1 and then just work through there. So group 1, what diagnosis did your client have? Yeah. And what sorts of therapies work for that diagnosis? Exactly, yeah, so lots, not as many as some of the other disorders, but this is a decent number. And which therapy would y'all choose if you were the therapist? Yeah, and honestly, it's just gotten better over the years. It's even better than when I used to do it, honestly, so. Awesome. Okay, group 2, what diagnosis does your client have?
We said depression,
Yeah.
and some of the things that were listed were acceptance and commitment therapy, behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral analysis, cognitive therapy, and emotion focus therapy, self-management, self-control, mindfulness based, and then I said that I would get better mindfulness or self-management, and I thought those would be like most beneficial because I think it's important, like teach them how to like give or like teach them how to like manage it outside of therapy, so like giving them like things to practice or like remember when they're not in a therapy session, how they can help themselves.
Yeah, excellent.
Social, things that like sitting in a room, not talk about the phone. Social testing, you have to have social, you can be more aware of mentally.
Yeah, and dialectical is really great because it helps people realize, like, for a lot of these disorders, part of what happens with your negative thoughts is that like you think in either or, black or white, and dialectic helps you realize that like two things can be true at the same time, right? And so it helps break some of that down. Excellent, yeah, so lots of good options for depression because it is the most commonly diagnosed. It's the most studied. Alrighty, so group 3, I don't know if any of you are able to unmute. I'll give it a sec, and if not, I can read it for you. All right, cool. All right, so their client had schizophrenia, yep. And there are, again, similar to depression, a lot of different things. So assertive community treatment, cognitive behavioral therapy, yeah, lots of support for that. And they chose CBT as well. It's very popular, but it has good effectiveness, yeah. And it helps them deal with their problems in a positive way by breaking it into smaller parts. It also helps them to become more aware of inaccurate or negative thinking. Yeah, exactly. So it's really kind of cool. CBT for schizophrenia is kind of similar to CBT for depression. You just sort of treat it as if they had any other problem, which in some ways is like normalizing too. And I'll just read for the other groups so no one has to be stressed out about unmuting. So group 4 had OCD, yeah. So lots of different things that work here: exposure and response prevention, CBT, and acceptance and commitment therapy. So looks like one of them really liked exposure and response. Yeah, so this is where you would actually like expose them to something that would usually make them do their compensatory behaviors, and not let them do them. And the reason to do that is not to be mean, but it helps them realize if they don't do those behaviors, something horrible is going to happen. Because in their mind, the reason they do those over and over, checking, cleaning, whatever, is because like something horrible will happen if they don't. And then the other person liked acceptance and commitment therapy. Yeah, and you know, I treated a client with OCD with ACT when I was in grad school, and actually while I was on my internship, and it worked really well for her because her obsessions were not anything we could do a physical thing for. Her obsessions were really sad. She thought she was going to abuse her children because she had been abused, and she had literally never hurt her children, but it sort of like this thought was always in her mind. So ACT helped her quite a bit. All right, and then group 5, the client had borderline PD. And sorry, I realized that this was kind of a complicated case. That's why I gave y'all the hint. So dialectical behavioral therapy, mentalization-based treatment, schema-focused therapy, and transverse-focused therapy. Looks like y'all liked DBT. Yeah. And it is the one that has the most empirical support for it. So as you can see, this is something that is a big thing in psychology. Again, the conference I'm going to that I leave for tomorrow night really focuses on this, like what therapies work for what. And so I think it's very ethical and it's going to help the client if you use something that has some research to show it works. So in general, how helpful is treatment? Well, one of the things we need to talk about in terms of how we research therapy is the words we use. So effectiveness studies, is it an effective therapy? Attempt to determine if therapy or treatment actually is effective in reducing symptoms. And then an efficacy study is what people typically do when they're doing this research. It contrasts some type of therapy to a comparison group. So originally it might have been the therapy versus a waitlist control. And then they might have done the therapy versus medication. And now times a lot of them are like, let's use DBT and compare it to whatever the usual treatment is, maybe CBT, and see if one is better. So the idea is let's figure out what's actually efficacious compared to other things. So the Smith and Glass study was a pretty cool study where they looked at all different types of therapy studies. And what they found is that the average study did show that the treatments did better than controls. This is, I think, the 80s. So that was really what they were doing, was comparing treatments to controls. And the average client was about 75% better off than untreated controls. But at that time, they all had about the same effectiveness. That's evolved since then. But their conclusion was it doesn't matter what kind of therapy you do. And then I think one thing that's really important we can pull from this in terms of like looking at these lists of effective therapies for these disorders is, you know, one of those effective therapies might work for one client, but not the other. And that's okay. Then you find another evidence-based practice that you can do. There was a consumer report survey done, the same people that do like cars and vacuums and things like that. They did this for therapy, I think in the early 90s. And what they found is that treatment usually works, particularly by mental health professionals. Long-term therapy produced better results than short-term therapy. But there was no difference between just therapy versus therapy plus medication. And what they found is psychologists, psychiatrists, and social workers did equally well. And at that time, they did better than marriage counselors. Family doctors, so like primary care docs who tried to give therapy, did okay in the short term, but not in the long term. In terms of self-help groups, AA did very well. People who shopped around and were active in their therapy did better than people who just kind of went. And essentially, no treatment was better than any other at that point in time. But not surprisingly, people whose choice of therapist or duration of care was limited by their insurance did worse. So like if you need a year of therapy and they say you can have 8 sessions, you're gonna do worse, right? And so this is where we get the idea of empirically supported treatments, which is what that list is of. So it's treatments that have been proven to work through efficacy studies. And I believe you need to have 5 efficacy studies before you're considered an empirically supported approach. So research results in general show that all therapies are winners. This is sometimes called the dodo bird hypothesis from the original Lewis Carroll Alice in Wonderland, where the dodo bird said, all have won and all deserve prizes. Basically, like doing therapy is better than not doing therapy, period, right? And there are common themes that come up in successful psychotherapy. So expectations of help. I'm going to therapy because you're going to help me. People who are involved in therapy feel more confident. They have more self-efficacy. Emotional arousal is a big motivator. So if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling panicked, right, overwhelmed, you're going to do well in therapy. The therapeutic bond, that therapeutic alliance, is probably the most important common factor in therapy. If you don't gel with your therapist, you won't get better. And then client factors, including things like we just talked about, the active engagement in therapy. So as you can see, therapy in general is effective. So over 70% of people who get therapy do better. They actually improve, or no, sorry, wait, this is the percentage people improve. That's awesome. So it wasn't 70% of people, it was like clients in general did 70% better than when they first came in. And if you do some sort of placebo, that's often just like sitting and chatting with someone. That's about 40%. No treatment. Some people will get better on their own, but obviously much less effective. Starting to bridge into our next chapter, we know that therapy can also help with health problems. So we know like stress reduction in cancer patients actually helps their physical treatments work better. It reduces physical health risks in people who are depressed. And it can enhance psychological wellness. And you can have well-being therapy that's short-term, column focus, and directive. And it focuses on positive experiences. And more therapies are starting to do this. So in like the new version of the basic cognitive therapy book, instead of when people come in for the week for therapy saying, okay, what went wrong this week? They start with like, what went well this week? And they found that just by changing that framing, people do better. Maybe not surprisingly, because you're focusing on like empowering them at that point in time, right? Okay. And this is a video I'm not going to show because I want to give y'all time for the next activity. But if you're interested later, you can look at this. It's about CBT for chronic pain. So again, thinking about some of these health disorders. All right. So what we are going to do is have you do a therapy role play. So pair off with someone in class. We'll probably have to do a 3 since we have uneven numbers in class. And one person's going to pretend to be a client seeking therapy. And then the other is going to pretend to be the therapist and help the clients. And it's going to be real short. So after 5 minutes, we'll switch roles. And you can talk about a real issue you're dealing with, or you can come up with something and pretend to have something. I'm not forcing you to self-disclose, but if you're like genuinely stressed out and think it'd help to talk to someone, feel free. But you could do something fun and pretend you have schizophrenia if you want. So folks in class, go up and pair up with someone. And again, we'll need one group of 3. And then what I'm going to do for the Zoom folks is go ahead and put you in breakout rooms and pair you off. There will be one group of 3 on Zoom as well. And I will let you know, it's 9:40 right now. I'll let you know when 9:45 hits. So I'm
So
opening
one person is pretending
to be the client, the other one's the therapist, and then after 5 minutes, just switch.
Is she diagnosing me or helping me?
Helping, you can say what you
Tell
have,
her.
yeah. Yeah, so pretend this is like, I don't know, session 5, you're already established.
Like, you know the problem. Social anxiety, that's one of our things, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think when a lot of people and not like taking out like. Uncomfortable. Yeah, like I like being around my mom, my dad. So then people like, well, no, or no, yeah. All the people who try to basically do it, so they're going to be out. They want to go to party. My brother. Yeah, it's like that. Sounds like. This one. That's a strange. Taking it over and learning by you say people that you know. So I feel like you can, you should go and sell this mistake and then you go around for. So in other words, it's like one person you doing. If you see if you like it. Like our other people.
I know it's a challenge. Keep talking with your person.
It's not amazing. Oh. I really don't do it. But, make sure it's me. So like, I don't need my past, but it's nice. It's really how long. Alrighty, everybody, go ahead and switch partners. Alrighty, everybody in Zoom, go ahead and switch partners or switch roles. There we go. Switch roles. So now the person who was the client becomes the therapist. The person who was the therapist becomes the client. Like, yeah, that's like stuff within the people energy start with the next day. You know, why water, right, you know, I wrote 400 so what? Maybe some kind of new one. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe, I don't know, like. Actually, I was supposed to, even now, it's for a lot when it's getting.
And again, I know it's challenging, but try to keep talking to your person.
So what he's doing, I'm like, coming out about, you know, maybe they meet plans on the meeting. Okay. Then that's yeah.
Alrighty. I'm gonna go ahead and closing our rooms. Alrighty. So hopefully that gave you a little view into what it's like to be a therapist. Again, you would have a lot more training, but typically you're doing 45 minutes to 50 minutes. So you can see how it can be a challenge. Reminder, no class Friday, but we will meet next Monday. Everybody have a good day and a good weekend. Thanks. Yeah, I'm presenting a couple things, so I'm looking forward to it.
Have fun.